Northeastern Nigeria has been challenged with long-term conflict induced by terrorist groups including Boko Haram for nearly a decade. The conflict has displaced millions of Nigerians from their homes, impacting life, businesses, and trade in many areas of the country. Ngaram was completely destroyed and devastated as no structure or vegetation remained after conflict and war broke out within the village, forcing community residents to find makeshift accommodation and eke out a living in distant communities from home. Borno State, one of the largest and most conflicted impacted states in the region, joined forces with the United Nations Development Program UNDP to help millions of people internally displaced by the Boko Haram ISWAP conflict to return and rebuild their lives and communities. The resettlement of IDPs to their communities by UNDP must be commended as it is coming at a time when Nigeria is gearing up for general election. Joining us on the morning show as we discuss how the UNDP have fared in the region and the settlement of the IDPs to their communities is Mr. Mohamed Yahya, UNDP Resident Representative for Nigeria. Welcome to the program, and it's a pleasure having you. Repopulating a community that was ravaged by insurgency more than a decade ago speaks volumes about the progress that we made in terms of security. Is Borno really safe now?
Thank you very much for having me. Borno is safer than it was. It has ever been in the last 10 years, I would say. I have been in Nigeria for 3 years and a half, and I can tell you without a doubt, in the last 1 or 2 years, we've seen a significant improvement in security. It doesn't mean the insurgency has ended. People are not being impacted by conflict. The insurgency is still there, but its footprint and its ability to disrupt has been significantly reduced.
Well, it took the Borno State government of Nigeria, supported by a coalition of partners, including your organization, the UNDP, to make the dream of resettled communities in the Northeast come to life. Who and who makes up this coalition?
So thank you for that question. I think before I answer that question, let me bring you back on why the conflict started and what needs to be done. There are many reasons that is being given on the root causes of the conflict. But in our perspective, and I think many will agree, the significant cause of the conflict is essentially lack of development. So the response in the last decade has been significantly tilted towards the military solution. And we've seen this not only in Nigeria, but in the entire Lake Chad region, but also in the entire Sahel. It's been always the security approach first. I think there's a recognition now, and led by the government of Borno State, but also by the federal government involvement, that as the military solution is on the table, we need to bring a significant development response to the insurgency. So this specific initiative is led by the Borno State, but also we have the similar initiatives in Yobe and Adamawa, the other two affected states, but also with the full leadership of the federal government and with financial investment for the federal government. In addition to that, the international community came together and supported this government effort. So the biggest supporters of the effort are Germany, which invested significant resources, but also countries such as United Kingdom, European Union, Sweden, and Netherlands. And we at the United Nations and United Nations Development Program in particular lead the work in supporting government.
All right, so how many people and communities have been impacted thus far in all of this? And how can we actually, make empirical data submissions as regards the level of impact, graduate the scale, sort of?
So the initiative is called Regional Stabilization. My colleagues in Chad, Cameroon, Niger are doing the work that we're doing here on the Nigerian side. And it's a recognition that this is a regional problem and needs a regional approach. So what we do is 3 things at the same time in a very short period of time. What we call area-based. So for example, this specific place outside Mafa town was destroyed, completely wiped out in 2015. The entire community was displaced, and for many of them, they've been in what they call internal displaced camps for a decade or so. So we came in with the leadership of the government of Borno to do a few things. One, bring in security back. and especially civilian security. To do that, we need police barracks, we need police stations, we need to have conditions for the police to come back. So that was done. Second, to inject infrastructure. The place was destroyed. Hospitals, schools, housing. That was done again. Third, to have livelihood. People who have been in an IDP camp for 10 years have to come back and restart their life and be self-sufficient. So we had to engage and give them the kind of support they need to be able to start their life. So far, we've done it in 8 communities in the 3 impacted states, and we will be doing more and more as the success in those areas is self-evident. For example, a place called Banki, the border town between Nigeria and Cameroon, we had an IDP camp there, and the border town used to be, before the conflict, a robust trading town. That had stopped for a decade. Now, the border town is back. Trade between Cameroon and Nigeria is moving swiftly, and there's been more than 3,000% increase in the population. So, and conflict and attack on those areas has been significantly reduced. So this is the kind of things we've been doing. So 8 places so far to see whether this approach works, and we will be expanding this to more places next year. So overall, I will say in each of the areas, collectively, you will say about 20 to 25,000 people have benefited.
Well, Nigerian creativity is certainly popular worldwide right now. And you integrated creatives into the rebuilding of one of those communities, in Garanam to be specific. Why? What has been the impact?
Yeah. Absolutely. Nigeria is envy of the world in terms of your young people and the creative community here, not only on the music and literature and the art side, but also architecture. So one of the things we've done here was actually you see in the pictures, tapped a brilliant young architect called Tosin Oshiwano, who's Lagos-based. I remember having a meeting with her about 2 years ago in Lagos and telling her, look, she normally builds these beautiful beach houses, and she's well known globally for the work she does. And now we had to convince her to come to this community and reimagine what rebuilding of those communities will look like and use her talent. This has been a fantastic success. She was able to spend months in Borno, sit down with local communities, understand the culture, understand the sensitivity, understand also psychology and the damage people went through, and rebuild through and use her skills to rebuild the community in terms of design. And what you will see now is one of the most beautiful designed homes for internally displaced people you will see anywhere else. So we are very proud to use Nigerian talent to be able to build the country and build communities that have been devastated by conflict.
All right. You've laid a foundation and provided the essentials, for reviving communities. But what seeds, have you planted that you expect it will take root, and our community leaders and members provide for themselves, and their families and the communities long term? I'm talking about, seeds of empowerment, because you can't continue to do this. It's not sustainable on the long run.
Rufai, you're absolutely right in terms of the challenges of sustainability. If you put yourself in the shoes of communities that have been displaced for a decade in an IDP camp, and the life in an IDP camp is not pretty. People obviously are safer, they get fed, and they lose a sense of self-reliance. And they even lose the skills for self-reliance. So bringing them back to their own community, it's a powerful tool, but also is a challenge of sustainability and livelihood. So one of the things the government has done with our support is inject significant resources around livelihood for people to kickstart their economic activity. It will be challenging. We'll continue to support in the short term, but we are confident, and we've seen it in other places, that nothing is better than going home, and nothing is better than being self-reliant and getting back your dignity. And this is why we think communities in the Northeast are looking to.
What about essential services and resources like healthcare facilities, schools, and businesses in that community that I referred to earlier on? What efforts have been made there? That's Ngaranam.
Absolutely. So one of the things is we're not only rebuilding those communities with the government leadership, but we're building it back better. So I've just talked about the quality of the housing that have been built back, which is much better than it was even before the insurgency. But also we are bringing back hospitals, clinics, schools, teachers. And one of the most interesting thing about this program and initiative is that as the international community supports the government efforts, there is a sense of mutual accountability. We build a police barrack, the government sends in the police. We build housing and hospitals and clinics, the government sends in doctors, etc., etc. So this work of mutual accountability in terms of the support that we can provide, but also government leadership and government ownership is what has made a significant difference. So you will see in this specific Garam town, it has a fully functioning school, it has a clinic, it has teachers' quarters, it has police station, it has police barracks, and all of it powered through renewable energy. Again, using modern technology to make sure that these communities are at the forefront of restarting their lives.
Some might argue that, settling these communities, does not get to the root cause of the problems, as regards the long decades of conflicts, and therefore, might be doomed to fail because if the pattern of violence continues. So is this community restabilization effort paired with any form of long-term work to address the root cause? And a lot of people just say, it's just in specific areas of this community. There's no generality of it. But if the violence comes back, then all of this can be scuttled. The beautiful houses can be undone.
Absolutely, that risk exists, and I think those who are skeptical or are pointing this risk, I think are very right to be concerned. But let me tell you something, Rufai. I personally I was born in Somalia, a country that has been devastated by conflict for years. I grew up in the Kenyan coast, and I've seen and wrote about why young people join insurgency and destroy the same communities they have grown up in. And I can tell you, having done this, there was a report we launched in 2017 called Journey to Extremism that looked at the journey, individual journey young people go in joining insurgency groups and destroying. Because these young people are not from another planet. They are part of the same society that they're destroying. So why are they doing it? And the conclusion we came to is one, lack of development. There are many things people can explain, psychology, ideology, but essentially majority of the foot soldiers of the insurgency is lack of development. And one of the things we've seen is across Africa, in the Sahel, in East Africa, recruitment to insurgency happens in communities that have high level of deprivation, no opportunity, no education, no schools, no clinics. So in that context, when you have fanatical ideologies come and recruit you, that is, most of them don't join. It's good to know that, but there are very few of who will join. So for us, the solution and the sustainability and the ending of the conflict is essentially about bringing development to these communities. And that may take a bit longer. It needs much more investment. But I tell you, there's no other pathway to stability but jobs, opportunity, hope for communities. And this is what the program does.
Well, the state government of Borno and the UNDP Nigeria are the brains behind the stabilization program, which has the potential to be the model for resettling communities in conflict zones at the regional, continental, and maybe even the global level. What has been the role of the federal government of Nigeria, if any?
Absolutely. The role of the federal government in Nigeria has been extremely critical. So the stabilization program that I've mentioned that covers in the entire region, especially in the Nigerian side, the 3 states that are impacted, is co-chaired by myself and the Minister of State for Budget and Planning. The military, the head of the military is on the panel, on the board himself, because the role of the security is important. So when we go to a place, we know that those places can be secured. IGP of police is part of the board. When we build a police barrack, he plays an important role in ensuring that the police go back. The governors who are benefiting from this program, but also are leading the program, are on the board. But more importantly, the role of the federal government is not only security and chairing, but also they've invested. They have given UNDP more than $1 million to be able to start these programs. So a lot of work is being done with the federal government, and without the leadership of the federal government, the success will have been nowhere close to where it is.
Right. So, one, will the place be safe enough for elections next year? And is this the best approach to getting the problem solved of IDPs out of camp, where they've been living for years, and back into stable, interdependent communities for the long term? You know, if the coalition spent about $10 million on rebuilding Ngaram alone, is this the most effective way of cost and stabilizing the region? So how much, if this costs $10 million, how much will you iterate across every area inundated with crisis? Is it 50, 60, $100 million? Is this the best way possible?
Absolutely. As I said, we started actually small in 8 communities, and we have seen those 8 communities, what's called area-based. So you go around those 8 communities, what you will see is much more, a higher level of increase in confidence of government, which is important because the social contract is the #1 goal of the people, between the people and government, is the most important goal of the program, because we need to stop young people being attracted to recruitment to insurgency groups. If you look at the resources that has been spent on security, the amount of money that has been spent on feeding people, the amount of money that has been spent on many other things, this is for me a drop a small drop that is worth investing, because this is the pathway to sustainability. So we're strong believers that the approach of investing in civilian security, investing in livelihood, and investing in infrastructure, and giving people self-reliance is important to know that we let people move and live their own lives without any long-term support. And that is the way to end the insurgency. And we think the investment is very apt, but I think much more can be done. But if, as I said, if you compare the amount of money we spend on other things to fight the insurgency, this is a worthwhile investment by government and the international community.
Okay, we seem to be paying closer and closer attention to the role that climate change is having in creating and worsening conflicts in the northeast of Nigeria. What role, if any, is it having in this case? And with all that has been done, do you think that that region will be safe for elections in 2023?
So absolutely, the climate change is a threat multiplier. Communities that have suffered conflict, displacement, and recently we wrote a report showing that each one person who dies directly from the conflict, 9 others die indirectly from the conflict in the northeast. So these people have suffered a lot. And now you have a threat multiplier that directly impacts their livelihood. As you know, not only in the northeast, majority of Nigerians rely on rain-fed agriculture. With climate change, unpredictability of rainfall combined with too much rainfall, what we've seen in the floods, are seriously impacting the vulnerable groups, especially those in poor but also conflict-affected areas. So for us, this is why COP27 was important. This is why the entire push for adaptation, because climate change is with us. How do we enhance capacity of our communities to withstand it? That will be extremely important. In terms of the elections, our engagement with election officials, especially in INEC and others, and we, UNDP, support INEC, as you know, on capacity building, but also the judiciary and capacity building. There's a sense that, at least in the Northeast, there will be an ability to reach the necessary threshold to undertake the elections. But you're right, insecurity is a challenge for the election, and is something I'm sure the authorities will pay close attention.
All right, I asked a question earlier on about elections. Will these places be safe for elections? And what are the unique elements of the projects that is key to its success, especially at the human level? Absolutely. So, obviously, if you have a safe, peaceful environment, people are able to exercise their democratic rights much better. And one of the key characteristics of insurgency is to stop normalcy. They don't like normal societies. That weakens them. So what stabilization does is to bring that normalcy back. So we feel that all these places that we are working on, elections can take place. But we also supported INEC's ability to undertake elections
in IDP camps as well. So this is some other the other components of the work we're doing. So to answer your question, yes, we're confident that this will happen. But also, again, the other component on this area is the human side, and you mentioned this. The ability to go home, the ability to, I'm sure both of you come from parts of the country. I hope you'll be able to go home in your own communities. These communities have never been able to do that. Go back to their childhood memory, their psychological foundation of life as they know it, and been deprived of that. It has also mental health component. So we are very confident the work that has been done is not only about physical infrastructure. It's not only about your ability to exercise your rights, democratic rights, but also your ability to go back to where you call home and feel safe.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Yahya, for joining us on the morning show. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.